A new report reveals a missed opportunity to stop the Uvalde mass shooting. What we now might know about a key moment right before the gunman entered the school. Monkeypox cases on the rise in Texas. We talked to the state's top disease tracker about who should be concerned and why. A women's health clinic packs up to get out of Texas as the state's abortion trigger ban looms. How the move affects other medical services and the patients who need them.
It's more important now than ever that we fight.
She led a famous filibuster to block Texas restrictions on abortion. Now we check back with Wendy Davis as she looks ahead to a new fight for reproductive rights.
Produced from the Capitol in Austin and airing statewide, this is the award-winning State of Texas.
Hello, and thank you for joining us. I'm Josh Hinkle. A report reveals new details about missed chances to stop the Uvalde mass shooter before he got into the school. The new information comes from the Advanced Law Enforcement Rapid Response Training Center, also known as ALERRT, but a key finding is already being questioned. Jala Washington gives us a closer look.
According to this ALERRT report, this all happened quick. The officer apparently turned to his supervisor, asked for permission to shoot the gunman after seeing him walk toward the school with the rifle. Then when he turned back around, it was too late, and the gunman wasn't there anymore. The report actually said the officer should have just taken the shot, and I quote, "A reasonable officer would conclude in this case, based upon the totality of the circumstances, that use of deadly force was warranted." Texas code does allow deadly force if an officer thinks it's necessary. According to the report, the officer thought he might misfire and hit the school instead, hurting children. Now, there are some major issues here that ALERRT pointed out outside of what we've already talked about. One, there were teams of officers at both ends of the hallway. This would have created a, quote, crossfire situation. And two, officers did approach the door as the gunman started firing, but then backed up, which goes against ALERRT's code saying officers are expected to, quote, assume risk and save innocent lives. And now it is worth noting that ALERRT says they did think officers went into the building quickly and moved towards sounds of gunfire, but lost momentum once they were fired at. Reporting from the newsroom, Jala Washington, back to you.
Thanks, Jala. Our investigative team went line by line through the ALERRT report, looking deeper into the differences from what we've learned before. Investigator Kelly Wiley joins us now. What do we know about the officer that is described in this report about the shooter walking into the school?
Well, first, it's important to know the source of this statement. ALERRT says this is based on information, testimony given by an investigating officer who was looking into the Uvalde shooting. As Jala said, the report says the officer asked a supervisor for permission, turned around, looked back, and the gunman was gone, so did not take the shot. One factor that ALERRT pointed to for that was the distance. The report said he was more than 100 yards away, but the report of an officer being in position to take a shot sounds similar to some misinformation that we got early on, just a day after the shooting. It's especially interesting when you consider one of the first comments from DPS and the governor after that shooting.
He went towards the west side of the campus, which is a back door. But as he was approaching, as the governor mentioned earlier, there was a brave Consolidated Independent School District resource officer that approached him, engaged him, and at that time, gunfire was not exchanged, but the subject was able to make it into the school.
And so that was from the day after the shooting from Texas DPS. The next clip we're about to show you is from the day after that press conference. And this is another official with DPS walking that statement back.
It was reported that a school district police officer confronted the suspect that was making entry. Not accurate. He walked in unobstructed initially. So from the grandmother's house to the bar ditch to the school, into the school, he was not confronted by anybody.
Okay, so with all of that we've just seen, now it takes us to this ALERRT report that was released this week, where for the first time we're hearing that an officer had a shot on the gunman before he walked into the school.
But the ALERRT report is also being questioned now by the mayor of Uvalde. He put out a statement saying no Uvalde police officers saw the shooter or had any opportunity to take a shot at the gunman before he entered the school. So what's the truth here?
Exactly. This seems to continue a big back and forth between Texas DPS and the city of Uvalde and their officials, who have said before that they've been kind of left in the dark when it comes to information in this investigation. But the details are still coming out. Tomorrow, the Uvalde sheriff is set to testify to the Select House Committee investigating this shooting, but that testimony is happening in executive session, so that means we will not hear it. It will not be made public.
All right, very interesting details, definitely. Thank you very much, Kelly. A new executive order could have a big effect on migrants entering Texas. Governor Greg Abbott authorized the Texas National Guard and state troopers to bring undocumented migrants taken into custody back to the border. The order says both the Guard and the Department of Public Safety can return migrants who commit other violations of federal law to ports of entry along the border. The state cannot physically deport people. That's a responsibility of the federal government. Some observers expect Abbott's order to face legal challenges.
It certainly represents a really complicated and quite troubling jurisdictional question to have, state law enforcement agencies essentially trying to usurp the role of the federal government. The Supreme Court has ruled many, many times over the last decades that immigration enforcement is the purview of the federal government. And typically the courts don't like when states try to take on that role or politicize immigration enforcement within states itself. So it'll be interesting to see how this plays out.
Despite questions about its legality, the governor's order is still likely to have an impact along the border and beyond.
It creates fear in communities across the state of Texas and in the border area. It's going to negatively affect commerce, and it is going to create new waves of xenophobia, of anti-immigrant sentiment that are going to affect new border crossers and all kinds of immigrants across the board.
The announcement came hours after the governor announced an additional $30 million for his border initiative, Operation Lone Star. But earlier in the week, reports revealed the Department of Justice is investigating allegations of civil rights violations linked to the operation. It's led to thousands of migrants being arrested for trespassing on private property. Governor Abbott's office sent a statement in response to the news of the DOJ investigation. In it, he said the president is attacking the only state taking unprecedented actions to do the federal government's job and secure our southern border. A women's health clinic is shutting down in Texas. How the state's abortion trigger ban is affecting other medical services and the patients who need them. With cases rising, health leaders are taking a closer look at monkeypox.
So we know that there is some transmission occurring in communities in Texas.
We get answers from the chief state epidemiologist, what you need to know about the virus.